autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile diabetes, lupus, Crohn's disease, all this IBS. All of these things had suddenly appeared in the mid-'80s.
All right, I know I haven't been posting a lot of videos lately, but Stacy and I have been hard at work pulling everything out of the garden, getting it processed and fermented and put away. And so we've been just kind of busy with that, plus our son's coming home, so we've been kind of getting his nest ready. And I apologize for not putting up a lot of videos. If you missed yesterday's video, it was really good. It was about the chemical fire, the biolab fire in Georgia. Nobody's really talking about it, and I have some really good explosive information in that video, so you might want to check it out. I'll leave it as the first comment under this video, so you can click it right after this and go watch it, because it's very interesting, okay? But Stacy and I have been hard at work in the garden. We're pulling everything out and processing our food. And I've said many times here on the channel that I believe that the food is causing a lot of your dis-ease. And Stacy and I are at a point now where we grow 90% of our own food and we process it ourselves. And, you know, we're taking care of ourselves to the best of our ability with what the Most High has given us. I've always been on record to say that I believe that the food from the store is causing your dis-ease. When Stacy and I first got up here, you know, we were coming right from the city. We've been up here 16 years, growing our own food, living off rainwater, no public utilities, no electricity. We just put in the solar power, in case you're new around here. It's been like a year and a half, almost 2 years. That's it. And it basically runs our refrigerator, because that was one thing that Stacy you know, would like to have better, was the refrigeration issue. And so we have that running off a little solar right now, but I'm still pretty much a non-solar person. But I digress. So when we got up here, I had, you know, psoriasis on my skin, and I had a lot of mucus build up in my body, and I was, you know, kind of fluffy, kind of, you know, overweight, if you will. And as we gradually have been more and more eating from our yard, growing our own food, our health has increased exponentially, right? All of my skin ailments went away. There's no mucus problems anymore, and we're living a very vibrant and healthy life. My wife is over 60 years old, and I am 57, and we don't have a primary care physician. We don't go to the doctors. We don't even have aspirin in our house. We don't believe in any of that stuff, and we share all of this stuff on YouTube for you guys, right? And so I was out there, we were processing our food, and I was listening to this interview by Jordan Peterson. He was talking to Robert Kennedy Jr., and he just confirmed everything that I said. Take a quick second, hold on, and listen to this interview.
We are now the sickest country in the world. We have the highest chronic disease burden in the world. When my uncle was president, I was a 10-year-old boy. About 6% of Americans had chronic illness, and today, 60%.
Oh, operate properly, and you can go look this stuff up.
When my uncle was president, we spent zero in this country on chronic disease. Zero. And today, and for many chronic diseases, first of all, there weren't even diagnoses, and there weren't drugs available. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion, so about 95% of our health budget. It's the biggest, and it's 5 times our military cost. It's the biggest item in our budget, and it is the fastest growing. And not only that, so it's destroying our country economically, absolutely debilitating it. All of our other issues are small towards it if you just measure its economic impact. It has other impacts. 77% of American children are no longer eligible for the military because of chronic disease. Obesity, when my uncle was president, was 3.4%. Today, it's 74%. Yeah, I mean, it's being driven by poison food, by ultra-processed wheat, sugar, and flour, seed oils, soy, canola, sunflower, and then wheat and corn, which are all heavily subsidized. So those 90% of farm subsidies, the crop insurance, etc., go to those 3 categories of soy, corn, and wheat. And those are the feedstocks for all of our processed foods. They turn into sugar. They're all nutrient barren. The original crops were nutrient rich, but the GMO crops are nutrient barren, and they're heavily dependent on pesticides. The reason GMOs are so popular is because they're resistant to pests. The reason they're resistant to pests is because they are resistant to pesticides like glyphosate. So you can saturate the whole landscape with glyphosate from airplanes, and that the only thing that's green is GMO corn, which is Roundup Ready. It's called Roundup resistant corn, and because of that, it's also very heavily laden with pesticides. Wheat, glyphosate is also used as a desiccant, which means it dries out wheat, so it's sprayed on the wheat right at harvest, which means it's going right into the food. When that began in 1993, that's when you saw all the appearance of all these gluten allergies and celiac disease and wheat allergies that you don't have in Europe. You know, you can eat spaghetti here and you're going to get eczema and all of these stomach complaints. Then you go to Italy and you eat it and you get thin. But here, and then the corn is turned into high fructose corn syrup, which is just a formula for making you obese and diabetic. And Americans, you know, diabetes is one of the diseases. When I was a kid, the average pediatrician saw one case of diabetes in his lifetime. So a 40 or 50 year career, he may see one case of juvenile diabetes. And today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And we spend more on diabetes than our military budget. So that is, you know, and nobody's talking about this.
Yeah, right.
You know, so these are all of these autoimmune disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, Alzheimer's is a form of diabetes. It's type 3 diabetes. It comes from poison food.
So is it how much of it do you think is the toxin load per se, and how much of it do you think is carbohydrate?
It's the overload of sugars, because all of those grains turn into sucrose, and they're very low in nutrients. So we're malnourishing kids. You know, you're seeing high levels of obesity, and in the same people who have high levels of obesity, there's also high levels of malnutrition. The most malnourished people in this country are the most overweight,
right?
Because they're eating food like
substances. Yeah,
and then
that's a good phrase.
And then they're covered with chemicals and pesticides. But some of those are part of the food processing, but some of them are pesticides, etc. There's 1,000 ingredients in our food that are illegal in Europe and other countries. So we're just mass poisoning us, and nobody has chronic disease epidemic like we do in our country. That's why one of the reasons we had the highest death rate from COVID. We had 16% of the COVID deaths in this country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. And so we did worse than any other country. And the CDC explains that, says it's not our fault. It's because Americans are so sick. CDC said the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases.
Right.
So it wasn't COVID; it was killing them. It was chronic disease, right? And you know, we are the sickest. We have the highest chronic disease burden. We have the highest COVID death rate. And then, but it's not just it's those autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, juvenile diabetes, lupus, Crohn's disease, all this IBS. All of these things had suddenly appeared in the mid-'80s. You know, I never knew anybody with any of those diseases when I was a kid.
Yeah, right.
The neurological diseases, ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, tics, Tourette syndrome, narcolepsy, sleep disorders, Tourette syndrome, ASD, autism rates. In my generation, 70-year-old men is about between 1 in 1,500 and 1 in 10,000. That's what it is today. My children's generation is 1 in every 34 kids, according to CDC, 1 in every 22 in California.
Think back when you were kids, how many people were allergic to peanuts and all this kind of stuff, right? So as I keep trying to sound the alarm about the food at the store is basically your enemy. Please get a little more aggressive on reading the ingredients. Read the ingredients on the side of the box. If you can't pronounce it, maybe you should put it back on the shelf. Notice that Robert Kennedy Jr. said that the other countries outlaw this stuff and we're force feeding it to our population. Folks, I'm not trying to say there's an agenda going on here, but just look around you. From the East Coast to the West Coast, North Carolina down to Florida. Take a look at your schools, take a look at your food, and take a look at you. How do you feel? Do you feel your best and greatest? Or do you feel kind of run down and sickly? Right? Because I believe that the food is the answer to that question. Okay? Make sure you share this video with your friends. People really need to get educated on this, because then you guys can vote with your dollars. If you don't buy the stuff at the store like that, and you maybe move your buying over to Azure Standard or some other companies that offer brand mixtures in their products, right? So you're not getting all the chemicals that you can't pronounce, or maybe even the crickets that they're slipping in to your food. Share this video with your friends. See you on the next video. Make sure you're subscribed. They are unsubscribing, folks, to our videos, and I will be posting videos on the regular going forward.